The observation deck of Research Station Kier 7 hummed with the usual symphony of alien technology. Clicks, whistles, and the occasional harmonic pulse that made human ears ache. Dr. Vexrath, a Quilarian xenobiologist with 4 optical sensors and a temperament to match, stared at the monitoring screens with growing frustration. "Impossible," he muttered, his translator chip rendering the word in flat, emotionless standard. "The biometric readings make no sense." In Containment Cell 47B, 2 Draxian cubs circled each other with lethal intent. Draxians were apex predators from a death world 3 systems away, creatures born with retractable claws that could shred titanium and jaw strength that could crush bone before their first molt. These cubs, barely 6 months old, were already the size of Earth's adult leopards, their obsidian scales gleaming under the sterile lights. The fight had been escalating for hours. Dravik, the larger of the 2, had cornered his sibling near the containment field. His lips curled back, revealing rows of crystalline teeth. Yet the sensors showed nothing. No elevated heart rates, no stress hormones, no electromagnetic signatures of aggression that Draxians typically broadcast before an attack. "They're fighting," Dr. Vexrath insisted to his assistant, a nervous Quellan who stood 3 feet tall and possessed a remarkable talent for stating the obvious. "But the readings, sir. I have optical confirmation. They are clearly engaged in combat behavior. What the sensors couldn't capture, what no Quilarian technology could properly measure, was the peculiar quality of Draxian juvenile aggression." Adult Draxians roared, broadcast their fury across multiple spectrums, made their presence known across kilometers. Cubs, however, fought in near total silence, their violence a whisper compared to the storm that would come with maturity. The door to the observation deck hissed open. Solana walked in carrying a thermal container of coffee, real coffee, imported at absurd expense from Earth, and immediately froze. Her green eyes tracked from the screens to the containment cell visible. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, "They're fighting again," she said quietly. Dr. Vexrath's sensory stalk swiveled toward her. "You can tell?" Anyone could tell. She set down her coffee and moved closer to the viewing window. "How long?" 3.7 hours. "But the sensors. Your sensors are calibrated for adult Draxians. Cubs don't fight the same way." Solana pressed her palm against the cool surface of the window, her breath fogging the material slightly. "May I?" The Quilarian's hesitation was brief. Humans were notorious for their reckless empathy, their dangerous tendency to anthropomorphize species that would happily consume them. But Solana had been on Kier 7 for 8 months, and in that time, she demonstrated an uncanny ability to work with the station's more volatile specimens. "If you insist," Dr. Vexrath said. "But protocol requires—" Solana was already moving toward the containment access corridor. She passed through 3 security checkpoints, each one scanning her biometrics and confirming her clearance. The final door led to a small antechamber separated from the Cubs' enclosure by a single force field. Transparent, shimmering, and theoretically impenetrable. Theoretically. Solana stood at the threshold and simply waited. She didn't call out, didn't activate the feeding mechanism or the environmental controls. She just stood there, one hand resting loosely at her side. Her posture relaxed in a way that would have terrified any reasonable xenobiologist. Humans, after all, were prey. Soft-skinned, slow-moving, lacking natural weapons. Every instinct in a predator's brain should have screamed food. Dravik saw her first. The cub's head snapped toward the force field, his slit pupils contracting to pinpoints. His sibling took advantage of the distraction to rake claws across his flank, a blow that should have triggered a violent response. Dravik didn't react. He simply stared. Then slowly he sat. His sibling, confused, attacked again. Dravik still didn't move, didn't defend himself, didn't acknowledge the assault. His entire focus remained locked on the human standing beyond the barrier. In the observation deck, every sensor finally registered something meaningful. Dravik's heart rate was dropping. His electromagnetic signature was shifting from the jagged patterns of aggression to something else entirely, something the Quilarian database identified as unprecedented biological state. "What is she doing?" the Quellan assistant whispered. Dr. Vexrath had no answer. Solana took one step forward. The force field hummed between her and certain death. She crouched down, bringing herself to eye level with the cubs, and extended her hand, palm up, fingers relaxed, in a gesture that meant absolutely nothing to Draxian behavioral patterns. Yet Dravik stood and walked toward her. His sibling, still confused, followed. Both cubs approached the barrier, their earlier violence forgotten. They stood there, heads tilted, studying this strange, soft creature that should have triggered every hunting instinct they possessed. Solana smiled. It was a small expression, barely a curve of her lips, but something in it made the cubs settle further. They lay down, their massive forms curling against each other instead of tearing each other apart. Impossible, Dr. Vexrath breathed, but Solana knew it wasn't impossible at all. Humans had been doing this for millennia, standing at the edge of the wild, extending a hand and somehow inexplicably making peace with creatures that had every reason to destroy them. She'd read the theories, of course. The academic papers about human persistence hunting, about how prey species' stress responses could paradoxically calm predators by signaling, not worth the energy. She'd studied the biochemical analyses of human pheromones, the psychological frameworks of interspecies bonding. None of it fully explained what happened when a human simply decided that fear was optional. Solana stood, and the cubs watched her rise with something that the censors would later classify as curiosity bordering on reverence. She turned and walked back through the security checkpoints, leaving the cubs peacefully resting together for the first time since their arrival at the station. Dr. Vexrath met her in the corridor, all four of his optical sensors wide with something approaching awe. "How?" he demanded. Solana retrieved her coffee, now lukewarm, and took a sip. "They're babies, Doctor. Sometimes babies just need to know someone's watching who actually cares." But the sensors couldn't even detect the aggression properly. "Maybe," Solana said gently. "Your sensors are measuring the wrong things." She left him there, contemplating the profound inadequacy of Quilarian technology in the face of something far older and more mysterious. The strange, reckless magic of human compassion and its ability to rewrite the rules of nature itself. Behind her, in Containment Cell 47B, two predator cubs slept peacefully, their sensors finally reading something the computer could understand: contentment.